far too long. I tell you it's gone on. Oh, somebody's hurting our people, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yara, National Theo Music College. And we're not going to be silent. We're not going to let a narrative go out that tries to blame this mayor for things that have been existing long before he ever came there. He's trying to fix it. We're not going to let folk blame it on the current citizens, because these realities could have been fixed a long time ago. What we are going to do is say now is the time, and we're going to join forces with the folk on the ground all across the country and raise the moral cry, the moral push. I'll be at the White House tomorrow, Mr. Mayor. They're doing the IRA, and while I'm there, I'm going to say to some folk, look, we can do everything we want to, but you got to deal with Jackson and support that mayor. We all need to be saying the same thing everywhere. I don't care whether you're a black politician, a white politician, or whatever. All of us need to be clear. Mayor's got a plan, support the plan. People in Jackson's got a plan. They know what to do. Let's stop all this other stuff and heal the water. Danielle, if you would introduce these powerful families who've been living this. They are our moral heroes and sheroes, and then we will hear from them. After we hear from them, I'm going to ask Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, who's in place now, to respond to what she hears from them. And then we're going to have Brother Roland Martin to interview the mayor directly.
Thank you all so much. My name is Danielle Holmes. I'm a national social justice organizer for Affairs of the Breach, and work with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. I too share in this very same pain as every individual that's on this call from the city of Jackson. And I want to just take the time out to thank you all for coming on the call, and for not only just coming on the call, but for being boots on the ground during this water crisis. So we forever thank you all. Thank you all so much. We need, I'm so hopeful. I remain hopeful tonight because our voices are being nationalized. And I want to just start off by introducing impacted speakers tonight. First, starting with my sister, amazing sister, Rukia Lumumba, who will lay some foundation on why we're here tonight, as well as share her own impacted story. We have Dr. Scott Crawford, Danica Samuel, Chris Ellis, Brook Floyd, Penelope Barnes, Curtis Nichols, and our very own Mayor Antar Shugway Lumumba. Mayor Shugway Antar Lumumba. Rukia.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you, everyone. Much thanks to Reverend Barbara and the entire Poor People's Campaign for lifting this issue, for talking about Jackson. I apologize, I'm having a little tech issue, so I'm going to have to keep my camera off as we're on this virtual today. But, you know, I'm Rukia Lumumba. I am a longtime resident of Jackson, Mississippi, and a member of the People's Advocacy Institute, as well as the Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition, which is led by so many amazing organizations, including the People's Advocacy Institute, the Mississippi Poor People's Campaign, One Voice Mississippi, the Immigrant Alliance for Justice and Equity, Alternate Routes, Mississippi Moves, Operation Good, Strong Arms of Mississippi, Mississippi Black Women's Roundtable. I'm going to say their names, y'all, because these folks have been working hard. Southern Poverty Law Center, and over 30 partner organizations that came together to mobilize communities across Mississippi to provide rapid response support in times of crisis, whether they're caused by natural disasters or infrastructure failures. Today's water crisis has been decades in the making, and I know I don't have a lot of time, but my story story of Jackson. It's the story of Black residents, of poor residents, of residents who, since 1970, saw both a significant drop in federal funding as well as intentional state divestment in Jackson's growing Black population, all in an effort to expedite white flight to avoid school integration. This is where it started, right? It also started from a willful neglect, an understanding of the importance of infrastructure in the first place. When we talk about a budget, you'll often hear my brother Chokwe and Mayor Lumumba talk about a budget as a moral document. Well, it is. And if we care about the wellness of our people, then we care about all of the ways that we stay well, including having clean water. In order to do that, we have to build our pipes. So this is what we've been experiencing in Jackson. Jackson has had plans in place. There's a narrative out there that there are no plans. There's a narrative that residents are just sitting on their butt, or Black leadership is just sitting on their butt. But the reality is that Jackson has had plans in place for its water system since 1997. Even in 2013, residents came out in droves and voted to tax themselves an additional 1%, y'all. We voted to tax ourselves an additional 1%, of which all that money would go towards our water infrastructure issue. And that little bit of money that we earn from that 1%, right, is still controlled by the state and is only a fraction of what the billions of dollars that we need to actually fix the problems of our water infrastructure, which the state has failed to do. You know, we talk about some of the most recent things that we've done. Even as early as 2020, there was legislation introduced to help not only help Jackson's water infrastructure, but also many rural communities in Mississippi that are experiencing the same water woes. And in 2020, state legislators passed this legislation, but the governor vetoed that. Governor Tate Reeves vetoed that legislation, depriving both Jackson and rural communities of the funds needed to actually fix our water infrastructure. So, you know, to not take up too much time, because there's so many more people that I want to hear from on this call who've been doing this work, who've been experiencing the pain and the suffering of not having water, not to be able to brush your teeth easily, not being able to take baths at different times, not being able to take showers, always having to boil your water. I remember as a child having to boil water. This is how long we've had this problem, and it's only gotten worse. So not only have Jackson leadership and the people of Jackson been patient, we've been self-sufficient. We have always acted responsibly to take care of our water needs. But it's very hard, y'all, to maintain a crumbling plant with no relief. We did not cause this problem, but we have been the only ones working to fix it, and it is about time for our state to do its part. You know, so I just thank everyone for being on this call today. I thank everyone for pushing and all of the water that has been sent our way, whether it's because a person in Arkansas or as far as Tennessee got in a car and filled their car up with water and dropped off, 20, 30 cases to us, or whether someone got together with their community and sent an 18-wheeler down of water. We so thank you for your efforts, and we say, free the land. Thank you.
Free the land, clean the water. Can we say it like that? Free
That's
the land.
right. Free the land,
clean the water.
Clean the water.
Let me make sure we're here, because people are listening from all over. We have over hundreds of cross posts. Two things I don't want people to miss, and Dan, if you don't mind, I just want to make sure that people testify, draw out a couple of things. My sister Lumumba said there's been divestment. Y'all need to hear that. Divestment, both federal and state, way back into the 1970s, connected to the issue of integration. And then I think I heard you say that you all taxed yourselves. The money, however, is controlled by the state. Then there was legislation in Mississippi that was passed by Mississippi state legislature that would have not only helped Jackson, that's predominantly Black, it would have helped rural communities as well. And the governor vetoed that and blocked that legislation and that money from coming. Did I get those points right? Because I think it's important for folk to hear this. And then I heard you say there's been a plan in place since 1997. So we're unpacking a narrative here a misnarrative, a disnarrative that has gone out. And so thank you for those facts. I just wanted to pull them out. And if I've got any piece of that wrong, just correct me right now, because I don't want to be loud and wrong.
Well, let me say this. There have been several plans to be issued since 1997 or earlier. And I think that it's important to note that each one of those plans come at a cost. We have engineered plans that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so when this narrative is saying Jackson doesn't have a plan, but for the fact that we've commissioned several plans and we're continuing to spend money where there's no return, that is what becomes an issue. But we'll get into that.
We'll get into that with Roland. Yeah. But that's important, Mayor, for folks to know that. Not only do you have a plan, the plans were paid for. That's what the mayor's saying. Somebody paid, the citizen paid for the plan paid for by the tax dollars. So the plans have been paid for and done. The issue is moving the plans, and you can have all the plans you want, but if folk block the funding to implement the plan, then the plans just come on the shelf, and it only comes out when we have the water like we have it now, and then people want to run and blame everybody else. But we're not going to let that false narrative go out there from anybody. Because I heard I saw somebody say if Jackson can't take care of his water, then like, no, Jackson knows what to do. Jackson has known what to do. Jackson has put it forward. That's not the issue. Who's next up? The family. Danielle.
Next up, we have Dr.
Scott Crawford. All right. Thank you. Doctor, share with us in 3 to 4 minutes your perspective.
Thank you, Bishop Barber. Thank you, Mayor Shockwave. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. My name is Dr. Scott Crawford. I've lived in Mississippi off and on since 1975, since the mid-70s. And I've been in Jackson proper since late 2006, continuously. Jackson's infrastructure woes didn't begin overnight. They can be traced back to historic divestment that began 50 years ago in the early 1970s. And they only accelerated in the 80s and the 90s, continuing on to today. I live with progressive multiple sclerosis, which forced me to retire early. I use a power wheelchair for mobility and can no longer drive. My friends with disabilities and many older adults who can't drive are dependent upon friends or family to deliver heavy cartons, cases of water to their homes, or make the untenable choice of drinking unclean, unsafe water. In my case, my disability doesn't allow me to carry large, heavy packages of water in my wheelchair, nor do I have the strength to do it. Many of our older adults are in a similar situation. We're grateful for the outpouring of concern and volunteers to deliver water to our homes, but this just cannot and should not be sustained forever. We, the people of Jackson, need the basics of life. Clean water, available directly from our taps. It's impractical for people with serious disabilities to constantly depend upon regular deliveries of something as basic as water. We already depend on others to do other things for us, like shopping and running errands, things like that. Adding water to it just adds additional burden. To those around the country, I want to say this. Jackson's population doesn't have even a fraction, not even a fraction of the money it would take to repair our water, our storm water runoff, our flooding problems, or other infrastructure problems. We don't even have a fraction of that money. It will require significant state and federal investment. And we've been asking for that investment for many, many years now. We can only hope and pray that now, with the eyes of the nation on us, that our state leaders will work with the city to make our capital the place we all want it and need it to be.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford, and thank you for your courage and for lifting up the piece we don't often talk about. While we may speak in terms of race and class, but let us not forget disability that hits so many people. And thank you for reminding us that it will take a coordinated effort, and it cannot be, Jackson cannot be treated like the World Bank treats some countries, where the federal or the state government says we'll do certain things, but there's some quid pro quo kinds of things and power that the city must give up. That's what happened in Flint, where we ended up there. This is something that should be done and should have been done a long time ago. And it's important that you continue to lift this narrative, as you said, while the eyes of the nation. And everybody that's listening, we should all say, I'm Jackson. Because if it can, it's not only can it happen here, it's happening other places. They just don't have the spotlight on them. And so we should see this and say never again and stand with the citizens of Jackson. Next on the list.
Danica Samuel.
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Danica Samuel. I'm a mother of 6 kids. I have been living in a poorest area of Jackson, Mississippi. My family life has been chancing in a struggle to serve in a constant condition of no water, of simple as unclean water, while living in poverty. I never thought in my lifetime that I would have to constantly give water and told them in buckets to flush water. And also I have to dip this water out of a bucket to take a bath, to cook. And constantly have to tell my youngest kids, please don't drink that. They can't wash their face. They can't brush their teeth. And I don't want people to feel like that. I'm just out here saying this is my everyday life, each and every day with 6 kids. And it is very hard. And it's a struggle over and over and over and over again. And I might cry, but I feel like it can't get no better, no worse. It has to get better. And I thank Ms. Danielle Holmes. Not only do I boil water, cook for my kids or whatever, each and every day at 8:30, I make it to the site. At 9 to 7, I hit the streets with Poor People Campaign organization each and every day and pass out water through my whole entire city to help ones who are just like me. And yes, I am the poor community. I said a low-income community. And it's hard. Me and 6 kids each and every day. But I thank Lumumba, Rukia for giving me the opportunity to help myself and my kids and Mississippians. And just for me to, and also give me strength to keep going each and every day. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how frustrated I get, I still have to do this because this is unfair to Mississippians. This is unfair to me to not have unclean water. We need clean water to survive, to live. And this is just not no story. This is my life story each and every day. And I have to constantly pray and remind myself and look my kids in their eyes and see what they mean to me. My mayor is only one person. I was born in 1986. It's been like that ever since I was little. And I am 36 years old of age right now. He only one person. It been messed up way before him.
My mom.
And he do the best he can. And my mayor just don't sit in no office. He be out there on the ground with us. He help us distribute that water. We can call him and he'll come out on the ground. We never, ever, Jackson, never had no mayor to come out on the ground and help us like Lumumba do. And I thank him thank you, sister. And Poor People Campaign organization is the best thing that ever happened to me. It also gives me the strength and the motivation that I can do it, that I am somebody.
Indeed, my sister, you are a modern day Elisha. Your words are like salt. We're going to get this water healed, not just for Jackson, but for all people. Sometimes moments come like this, but they are the beginnings of the transformation. And voices like yours are the most powerful. I think you hear that emergency siren on my computer. It's amazing to me that as you were speaking, that siren started ringing, because we do have a moral emergency. We've got a water emergency. We've got a political emergency. We've got to free the land and clean the water. Don't you give up. Don't you back up. That's why, before the next speaker, we want people to know, I don't know if you have it yet, you can put up the flyer. We're coming to Jackson for Mississippi Mall Monday, not to highlight me or anybody, but in our Mall Mondays, we highlight the people on the ground. Is that right, Danielle? We only use those to lift up the people. That's one of the things different. We drive the media to the people. And so we're coming, and we're going to be inviting folk from all over the nation to join nonviolently, prayerfully, moral cry. Put it back up, please. For a Jackson, Mississippi National Mall Monday on the 26th of September. You'll hear more about it. Those of you that are here, we want you to come, and we're going to get some insights from the mayor and others, because we don't want to put any kind of hardship on the city. And this is primarily about people from Jackson and their voices continue to be heard and their demands be heard. This is so fixable. This is so fixable. But we do not have a lack of plans or a lack of money. We just have a lack of moral conscience and political action. And it's time. That young lady said 6 children in all of this time. And let me just say that right now, before the next speaker, Danielle, tonight we're going to commit from Poor People's Campaign, from repairers of the breach. And I'll talk to Liz. I want to talk jointly before we do the PPC. We'll do something there. But from repairers of the breach, we're going to commit $20,000 tonight for water and those kinds of things that are needed on the ground to help. We know y'all are valid. We know you got groups down there that have resources, but we all need to put some skin in the game, and we all need to be supportive all around the nation in this moment. So I just want to announce that, not for any accolades or anything else, but to say we all are declaring free the land, clean the water. The next family.
Next family is Chris Ellis, Mr. Chris Ellis. Mr. Chris Ellis.
Hi, my name is Chris Ellis. My wife, Stephanie, and I moved to Jackson a little over 4 years ago after we just fell in love with the city. And we knew that the city had infrastructure issues before we moved in. In fact, I was made very well aware of it by many friends and coworkers when I said that we planned to move and buy a home in Jackson. And we were advised, you may want to look in other areas. No, we love Jackson, and I'll tell you why. As we were walking through the neighborhood that we bought our home in, there was a huge pothole in the middle of the road. And all the neighbors said, oh, that thing's been there forever. What the neighbors did was they put a big Christmas tree in there, and they decorated it for Christmas. And what my wife and I saw in that was that we found a city full of people who can find joy in sorrow, a city full of people who can look at the situations around them and say, let's find joy where we're at right now, but let's also claw our ways out of it, right? So in that time, in the time since we moved here, we've seen a lot of those issues get resolved. We've seen roads be repaved. We know that the city's invested in doing this. We know that the city has put a plan in place to get the water issues taken care of. You know, we've been told by the media, well, there's no plan in the city of Jackson. And they said, well, actually, here's this 5-year plan that was already sent out. Oh, okay, well, it's only 5 years out. And we watch to see those goalposts. We watch those goalposts move, right? So suddenly it's, oh, well, it's only a 5-year plan, and somehow that's not good enough. So it's been very frustrating for us to see while we are having to buy water and bring it in from out of the area. We have had Kentwood water delivered to us for several months now after receiving these notices for a long time that says your water has lead and copper in it that may not be safe to consume. And You know, we're thinking about ourselves bathing in this. We're thinking about babies being bathed in this. And
say that one more time. Say that. So slow down. I want you to say that for the media and other people that are on the line. And for me, y'all, we're going to be Roland Martin and the mayor be interviewing in just a minute. But say, what did you say? I want folks to hear that. You said what kind of minerals?
We've been getting these notices. Now, I grabbed this from just a pile of them that I had. This one happens to be from November of 2021. Notices that say that there's lead and copper because the water quality parameters do not meet minimum values and that there has not been corrosion control properly installed. Now, I know... Yes, sir. Lead and copper. And all I can think about is, first of all, my wife and I, we want to start growing our family. I know I don't want to be bathing my babies in this. I'm thinking about people like Danica, who's already said she's got 6 babies. She's bathing her babies in this, and are having to find a different way to take care of just keeping her babies clean. And I know that the state has the resources, and I know that the city has the plan and has the gumption to get it done. So what I get really bent out of shape about is, where is the disconnect? Where is this level of distrust coming from that is keeping the funds that are needed to implement these plans, to get them put in place? I've seen what happens when the city has resources to fix the issues in front of it. That pothole that made us move here because there was a Christmas tree in it, that pothole's been filled. All the big roads around us have been repaved. We know that when the city has resources, they get stuff done. And I know that there's a plan out there to get the water treatment plants fixed and to get our water system under control. My wife and I have been very, very fortunate that we've been able to get water delivered, that we have been able to go out and buy the water that we need. But we know that there are those, that there are neighbors of ours who aren't as lucky as we are. And I worry every day and every night about how those folks are going about their day-to-day lives, having to deal with this water problem, when I know that our city has a plan to implement it, and I know that our state has the resources to help us fix it. But for some reason, it's taken all the media attention to even get our governor to have a single press conference with the mayor. We can't put aside our pettiness long enough to do more than that. We have to do better. We have to do better.
Yeah. Because I don't think that if you're a Republican or a Democrat, that drinking lead doesn't poison Republicans, but it does poison Democrats. And it's a good thing the mayor is nonpartisan. I mean, I don't think that lead says, okay, if you're white, I'm not going to kill you, but if you're black, I am going to kill you. I mean, the fact of the matter is, lead and copper are not supposed to be consumed. Clean water is what's supposed to be consumed. And that alone, because what you're talking about is policy violence. And what I hear you all describing is policy violence. And if anybody dies from this policy violence or has died, I would go so far as to say it's policy murder. Because it's not, the greatest sin in the Bible is not when you don't know something and you do wrong. It's when you know not to do it, but you do it anyway. And that's what we see here. This does not have to be. People who are listening hear that. Where would your level of outrage be if not only did you have to bathe, but if you get real, real thirsty and didn't have any water, you'd have to literally drink lead and copper in water, all because political types have refused for years to fix it because they're stuck in a narrative of the past, in a narrative of racism and classism that is now poisoning, hurting, making sick, maybe even killing people and citizens of Jackson. Think about that. The next speaker, Danielle.
Next speaker we have is Brook Floyd. Good evening.
Resident of Jackson. My children attend the local school district, JPS. My family loves this city, and we are committed to staying here. This is our home. As a mother of 2 young children and a longtime educator, I know all too well the strain Jackson's water crisis and continuing water and sewer issues has put on all of our families. The added stress of having to boil water just to cook and wash dishes, and the added cost of having to purchase drinking water for our families. For some of us, those costs combined with added plumbing costs due to the city's aging infrastructure have been in the thousands. The stress of worrying if the water is safe while pregnant and during our children's developmental years can be overwhelming. The closing of our schools due to water and sewer issues puts even more of a burden on our already overwhelmed families. Our city, like others in this state, have been denied support for years for our aging infrastructure, and we know why. We deserve clean water, a basic human right. We have been denied this for far too long. All we are asking is for the state to do what is right and support all of its citizens. We are the capital city, the city with soul. We deserve clean water, not privatized water. Our water supported and repaired by our state. We are Jacksonians. We are Mississippians. We deserve, no, we demand the state and the federal government fix our aging infrastructure and restore clean water to the residents of Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you.
Thank you for putting in the room that you're just asking for a basic human right. It's not some extra. It's not people begging for something. It's basic. And thank you for putting in the room. We need it to be fixed by the places where we pay our taxes to and not privatize. Because when you privatize water, you know what happens? The same political people that kept it from being fixed then turn around and get paid to fix it. Because when it's privatized, a lot of times the folk that end up getting the bids for those things are the very people that support the people who were in office who should have had it fixed. You know, we don't need that game being played in Jackson. We don't need it being played in any city around this country. We should never have to depend upon private services for clean water. It's a basic human right. It's a basic demand of democracy. Next speaker. Are there any other families?
Yes, next speaker up is Penelope Barnes.
Hello. Hello, my name is Penelope Barnes. I'm a low-wage worker. I am formerly incarcerated, and I'm from Mississippi. I currently live in Jackson, Mississippi, and I've been here for 2 years, right out of incarceration. I'm affected by the water crisis here in Mississippi, in Jackson, because water is a human right. Clean water is a human right. And as of right now, I feel like my right has been violated and taken away from me, because the simple fact of it is I can't even bathe, brush my teeth, wash my hair, do the things that us people, human people, are supposed to do. It's like the people that care for us is trying, but then you got people that's trying to push it all away.
Hey,
and
you
they
move, turn your
We hear her. We hear her.
You're good.
Penelope, come back on. We hear you.
Okay. This is the way this has affected me so much is it's affected my mental and my physical health. I suffer from PTSD, bipolar, and some other things, but I also am a heart patient. I have a pacemaker, and I'm not supposed to be under any unnecessary stress, but right now I'm under the unnecessary stress because I'm having to wonder where my water's coming from because I can't get it out the tap. I can't do normal things out of the tap water that we are supposed to have. It's our human right. Clean water is a human right. And it, like I said earlier, it's been taken away from us. And it shouldn't be. It should be allowed to be out of our faucets, where we're allowed to flush our toilets right, wash our hair, take care of our children. And we're not allowed to do that right now. We're having to depend on a bottle of water. And that's if you can get it. I have no transportation, so I'm having to depend on people to deliver it to me. Thanks to Miss Danielle Holmes and the people that's done it, like the Rapid Response, the Mississippi Poor People's Campaign, the people on the grounds, they've helped us so much by being able to bring it to us. Like I said, I just want my human right, clean water. That's all.
That's all.
We will not be silent anymore.
Thank you, Penelope. You're exactly right. And you know, this issue, you bring another issue to the table. It's like, what does it say when you can be incarcerated and get clean water and then come out of incarceration and can't get clean water? In fact, that's another form of incarceration, another form of being being incarcerated, because now you're being incarcerated from a basic fundamental human right. But that's why we can't be silent. That's why we can't stand down. That's why the whole nation, all of us, have to stand up. This must be the moment that all of us say, never again. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm sitting here thinking of some things I'm going to say to the mayor. I'm saying offline, because there's some things that people who have blocked, if they don't go ahead and fix this, then block this, should have to face. And you should not have government policies by the state that cause you to get sicker or cause you to get worse or potentially cause you to die. That is not equal protection under the law, which is a fundamental principle. I think we have one more family, Danielle.
Yes, we have Mr. Curtis Nichols.
Brother Nichols.
Good evening, Reverend Barber, Mayor Lumumba, Danielle, Rukia, everyone on this call, all the different organizations. I appreciate your time. I'm actually on a film set, so please forgive me if people walk in on me. I just want to speak on behalf of the entertainers in Jackson, Mississippi, and business owners. A friend of mine, good friend of mine, started his coffee shop right on the day of the pumps collapsing. This is an issue that has been going on for a very long time. I remember when I first came to Mississippi in 1999. The mayor may not know this, but his father represented me. Came to Mississippi as an artist in residence teaching art. And there was an individual in Texas that murdered a police officer, and his name was similar to mine. And so his dad had to come to my rescue. I was in jail for 3 months before they realized that the other guy's name wasn't even spelled the same as mine. And his dad represented me pro bono and took care of that for me. When I moved back to Mississippi about 10 years ago, it was because of the people of Jackson, Mississippi that drew me there. I had more resources in Philadelphia and New York. However, I didn't have the human resource of Jackson, Mississippi. And since being there, what I've seen is some form of sabotage. I've spoken to many business owners where they have been told they would have it better had they moved outside of the city of Jackson, if they moved to Richmond. Costco's, one of the manager of Costco's told me that 3 years before they moved to Mississippi, they were told to stay away from Jackson, that they would have it better if they move into Madison or Flowood or Richland and places like that. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of, it's a different virus hitting every other month. And water is something that's needed for people to stay clean, stay healthy, and fight off these diseases. And we feel attacked. We feel attacked, and we feel as though this is some sort of coordinated effort to ruin our city. When this happened, It was nothing for me to shut down everything that I was doing and come and help out in any way possible. Run forklifts, deliver water to businesses, deliver waters to homes, take it door to door, however I needed to do it. I wanted to unite with as many organizations as possible to make sure that we all have what we need and that we know that we care for each other. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Brother, you mentioned this whole business of under attack and COVID. Thanks for bringing that into this conversation. CDC is saying you need clean water. Governor's vetoing fixing Jackson's water. CDC is saying you got to have water to protect yourself. But federal government, nor the governor, nor the others have unleashed the Corps of Engineers. CDC says you need clean water. Instead of talking about public fixing, people want to talk about private fixing and trying to blame the mayor. CDC says you need clean water. Some people are using what's happening in Jackson, as you said, a form of political sabotage and trying to create a donut of economic vitality around Jackson, but then make Jackson the whole. Can't stand for that. You can't allow that. And it's going to require every form of push and moral push. I heard somebody say that the mayor and the governor this other day did a piece with the mayor that didn't come without you all, without tenacity, without just speaking truth, without standing for what's right, without making sure that you will not be silent or unheard anymore. We got to clean the water. We got to free the land, and it must be public. We got to free the land. We got to clean the water, and it must be public. We got to free the land. We got to clean the water. It must be a public fix. We won't be silent anymore. This is a basic human right. We can't live in the narrative of the past that is still seeping in the present, where racism and classism have for years poisoned the mind and the water of Jackson. It's time for the healing of the water. Prayer is good, but prayer must be engaged with purpose, power, protest, and there must be action. And that action cannot be another 10 years, 5 years, 2 years. People are dying, people are hurting, people are being made sick, and you are hearing the voices right here. One more time, put that flyer up on Monday, September 26th. You'll get more about it. But we will be having a mass Moral Monday, National Moral Monday, Mississippi Moral Monday, National Speak Out in person, where the voices of Jackson will speak to the nation. It will be in Jackson on the Monday, September 26th, and you'll be getting time and others. And one of the things we believe we found out in North Carolina when we did Moral Monday, we kept it going and going and going, and it ended up giving the political and the moral pressure to create the political space to win some key victories. But what we will not do is be silent anymore. I want, just before Roland Martin takes over now, to interview the mayor, to have Reverend Dr. Liz Steele Harris, who just jumped off the plane and who is a co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign. And as I said, her and I will be putting our heads together. And when we come to Jackson, we'll have a gift from the PPC. I wanted to announce a gift from repairers because I can do that. And we had a meeting today with our people. But Liz, as you hear this, as a mother and as someone who has stood along poor and low-wealth people in housing issues, climate fights, what are these testimonies, as somebody in New York, what do these testimonies say to you from where you sit? And what is your word to the people who want to know, should I be supporting this? Should I be joining the voices? Should I be a part of the action step? We've got almost 500,000 people. We're going to be asking them to take some very clear actions. Everything, Mayor and Daniel, will be based on what you all say. If you all tell us that you need thousands and thousands of people to contact the senator's office or whoever, then we will turn loose what we have to join in what you have. But Liz, where you are, just getting off the plane, what does this say to you?
Well, indeed, it's an honor and a blessing to be in this speak out with everyone this evening, and thanks to the families, thanks to the mayor, thanks to everyone in the Rapid Response Coalition and the Poor People's Campaign across this country for the leadership that we're seeing out of Mississippi. Bishop Barber opened with a text from the Hebrew scriptures from Kings about Elisha. And the words that people were just sharing made me think about the freedom fighters that we follow in the Exodus, who had a long history of being rebellious, had a long history of organizing and mobilizing, much like the folks that are in this speak out this evening, the long history that Mississippi has had of both oppression, but also a long history of people speaking out and making sure that we will not be silent anymore. And I think about, when freedom fighters said it was just too much in Egypt, and then waded into the water and saw those chariots drowned. They got to the other side, but there was still oppression. And I think about those freedom fighters going to Mara, where the water was bitter, where it was poisoned. And it was poisoned not from the people in that town, not from the local authorities, not because, as we've been hearing, there wasn't a plan, but because oppression, the lack of infrastructure, empire benefiting from punishing those who dare to speak out and organize and mobilize. But the people, those freedom fighters cried out, just like the people on this call are crying out this evening, and their voices are heard. And in that moment, God responded and said, we can bring about clean water. And we know that that's possible in Mississippi, in Jackson. But it's only possible when we have this diverse group of freedom fighters that are on this speak out this evening. And so I just encourage everyone, the thousands upon thousands of people that are gathered with us online this evening, to heed the call coming out of Jackson, Mississippi right now, to join that fight, to cry out like we're hearing, free the land, clean the water, and make sure it's all public, and to keep on supporting the people of Jackson, Mississippi, the people of the state of Mississippi, and say that it just does not have to be this way, and we have a role to play. And so just honoring the voices, the stories that are with us this evening, and just excited to be here with you all.
Thank you so much, Reverend. And thank you for reminding us, whether you're Muslim or Jewish or Christian, water, the symbolism of water plays such a significant role. And to not fight for clean water is to actually not be on the side of righteousness. And one of the things I said to Danielle, when we come down, we want to spend some time, because I want to call on clergy now, whatever your faith is. Clergy have to be, we have to use our pulpits and our voices and support the people and the mayor. We must be the salt put in the water. We must not allow the water to remain bitter. Every religious tradition somehow uses water as a sign and a symbol. And so there must be a call for justice that's like water, righteousness like a mighty stream, flowing not only out of pulpits on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, but in the streets and in the political suites. And again, when we come on tomorrow, Monday, September 26th, those are the voices you'll hear, we promise. And we are calling on people to put all of their voice, their face, their tears before the nation. We're driving all of this in the media, because that's what's going to turn. Even the water of our tears, Rachel or Penelope or Sarah or Scott mourning and saying, we will not stop crying out about this until it is fixed. You cannot stop it. You cannot. There'll be people who say, oh, no, there must be a unending cry and an unending demand all the way through. Your tears, your righteous anger and indignation, your Fannie Lou Hamer moment. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired about this poison water. Must be our constant mantra. Free the land, clean the water, and it must be public and never private. My friend Roland Martin is on. Roland Martin Unfiltered, doesn't pull any punches. And he's going to interview now Mayor Lumumba and talk to him, and also carry this. You know, Roland is a major news voice who tells the stories and brings the truth that others do not dare to tell or to say. And Roland, I love you, man. Thank you, Alpha brother, for being here tonight. And you can take it on now.
My fellow Alpha brother, I appreciate that. And of course, this Kappa mayor, he knows how we roll. He knows how we roll. But looks like he's wearing the proper colors tonight. That appears to be a little black and gold he's wearing tonight. Don't be trying to look for some red and white. I see you. All right, let's get right into it. Mayor, first off, I saw you on Face the Nation yesterday, and we played a clip on my show because that was one of the residents. She posted a video over the weekend showing there was brown water still coming out her faucets. And so just lay out exactly where y'all are, because folks were saying, oh, water's now pumping. So the clean water's now back in Jackson. I've seen some people actually post that. And so where exactly are you at in terms of clean water going to all of the homes?
Well, brother, I want to get to your question. But before I do that, I just want to thank you, my brother. I want to thank Reverend Barber and the Poor People's Campaign, all of the associated organizations and the people of Jackson. I would be remiss if I didn't say I absolutely love y'all. And that means a great deal, just listening to the people. I can't tell you how that affects me. And I'm going to do this quickly, but I also, when I think about 2 Kings, I think about the story of Elisha and his servant when the Armenian army was surrounding their encampment. And his servant was worrying. And so Elijah asked the Lord to open up the eyes of his servant so that he could see the mighty army of God that was in fact with them. And the scripture ends by saying, they that be with us are far greater than they that be against us. And I think that's appropriate in this moment to know that they that be with us are far greater than they that be against us. Fast forwarding to where we are, water pressure has been restored, best we know it, to all residents of Jackson. We are still asking residents. This is based on what we see, checking not only the pressure coming out of the treatment facility, but also things like testing fire hydrants across the city. Those are the indications. But if there is a resident or families that do not have it, then we've been asking that they let us know. There have been investigatory samples that have been happening at the water treatment facility to see what is coming out, right? We're not ready to do the official samples because we know that, when the flood came in and the chemistry of the water changed, that there was not fully treated water that was pushed through the system. And so part of that is the time game of waiting for that to push its way through the system before we could be confident that the test can move forward. But let me say this, brother, we've been here before, right? We've been here where we've been able to, in the short term, remediate the issue of low water pressure. We've been here before where we've been able to lift boil water notices. And then what has happened in the past is that because that is no longer a looming threat or a present threat in that moment, then those that are speaking about it and talking about they have issues from leadership positions, suddenly back away from the responsibility and leave us to contend with it. And so it leaves us in my administration or the people saying that, we know that this system is still fragile. We know that the capital improvements have not been made. So it's not a matter of if this is going to happen again. It's a matter of when this is going to happen again. And to date, people have been quite satisfied with just allowing it to happen time and time again.
I had the EPA Administrator Michael Regan on my show last week, and one of the things that he talked about, and I had one of the public campaign folks on today, where they said, hey, the way to put pressure on the state government is to say, unless y'all send money to Jackson, we're not going to send any money to you to the state. I asked you on the show, is there a way for the federal government to bypass the federal government and send the money, bypass the state government and send the resources directly to the cities?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say this. When the state receives money, out of these infrastructure acts, there's something called a state utilization plan, where they have to submit their utilization plan to the federal government and get approval for how it is going to be used. And so what we have to do is, make certain that there are sufficient guardrails around if the state does not have a plan that addresses cities like Jackson, that addresses our serious need, then we do need the federal government to step in and deny it all. That if you're not going to treat us with equity, if you're not going to have equal protection, the legal term that Bishop Barber raised, then we're going to deny funding to you. Now, there are competitive funds that the city of Jackson can go after and have gone after. A good portion of those federal funds, the portal opens up in October, right? We've gone after SRF loans, which are federal funds, right? Often the state makes this a narrative around why should we help Jackson? First and foremost, let's be very clear. It isn't the state's money to begin with. This is federal dollars that have been sent through the state of Mississippi with cities like Jackson in mind. And so, I have to lift up, not only have we commissioned a plan that was paid for by Soul Engineering, by AJA Engineering, and by Neil Schaefer Engineering collaboratively to produce a capital improvement plan that we have relied and created various documents that have been shared with our delegation, that have been shared with the governor, that have been shared with our congressional delegation, that emphasize the engineered estimates of what we need to do and a prioritized list of what has to happen. I have to lift up that my predecessors did the same thing. Whether we agreed on everything, I have to give them credit where it is due. Tony Yarber, who was immediately before me, lifted up issues with the water. My father lifted up issues with the water and our need to address this. I'm sure Mayor Frank Melton, who's no longer with us, did as well. But I have been able to confirm that Mayor Harvey Johnson has done it, right? And it even predates Black leadership. It goes to a point where our city has begun to turn the corner of what the demographic represents. And so those are the things that we need our people to understand and know. Now, when it comes to this question of a plan, not only have we submitted a plan, but here's the other key conversation. Plans are an intended path forward, right? Or a suggested path forward. Sometimes there are disagreements, i.e. immigration plans, i.e. healthcare plans and the like every presidential candidate has, right? And then they debate whether they agree with it or disagree with it. The problem that I have is not only the failure to recognize that we have had plans, but it is the failure to communicate around them, period. To say, well, maybe you need to include this. Maybe we need to see a little more of this, or maybe the timelines or the phases in which we do this would help us around this. What it simply means is that our priority hasn't been those who have responsibility, their priority. And that's the thing that hurts the most.
I was looking at one story, and it said that the state had somewhat of $1 billion surplus last year, and that when it came to Jackson's request from the state, Jackson got zero. Yeah. I'm also understand that that Jackson sends more sales tax revenue to the state of Mississippi than any other city in Jackson. So you have this surplus, And one of the reasons you have a surplus is because of all the sales tax money that's coming from Jackson, plus the fact that for every dollar in taxes paid in Mississippi, 4 comes from the federal government. So really, when you say that's not Mississippi's money, that's the federal government's money coming in. And so it gives off the impression that there is a deliberate attempt to starve your city.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. First and foremost, Jackson is 3 times larger than the next largest city, right? So Jackson's contribution to the state is far and wide beyond, in any municipality that can compare. And in addition to that, most capital cities in our country, because a good portion of the property in the city are state properties that you cannot tax, right? They get what you call payment in lieu of taxes. It recognizes the hardship of being the capital city, right? The limitations over your financial growth because you're the capital city. We don't get that in Mississippi, right? We don't get that, right? So you
have a lot of land where you have buildings and offices and all kind of stuff that's state property. So therefore, you got no shot at getting property taxes if businesses want to operate on that land.
Absolutely. And so also, in addition to not getting our equitable share of resources, when we step in and fill in the gaps, when our residents who demonstrate shared sacrifice, as we talked about the infrastructure, the 1% legislation or referendum that the residents voted by over 90% in order to tax themselves. Hear that again. The residents voted over 90% to tax themselves. There is a commission that is largely approved by the state that determines where that money gets to be appropriated and the master plan, or they have to approve the master plan over those dollars, right? And so they still leave this caveat that allows them to control. And so when it comes to things like, not only do we have a drinking water and that being the most critical issue, we also have a wastewater challenge where wastewater is coming up in people's homes, in their yards, and they have written in their bylaws essentially that we can't apply money to those issues, right? And it isn't enough money to deal with these challenges, but it was a start that the residents gave, where there's still control over that, right? There was legislation some years back called the CCID, which carved out state-owned property, carved out neighborhoods that I can't tell you why they're incorporated in it, right? That there is a special allocation of funds to their roads, to their infrastructure, and there's supposed to be money that goes towards extra protection around public safety with, right? And so when you look at the state and their response here, you have UMMC, which is the medical center that is owned by University of Mississippi, and it's a state entity. While Jackson is dealing with water issues, they have a water tower, right? You look at the state fairgrounds, right? While Jackson has a problem, they have created a well that services them for water so that they don't have to deal with those issues. Time and time again, we see the state create guardrails that protect them, right? But don't protect the citizens of Jackson. And even if we said, hey, it's just about we have to protect our own assets, which is not a forgivable piece, then what about Jackson State? Jackson State University is a state-owned entity. They don't have a well that is run by the state, right? And so these are the issues that come up time and time again. And so my fear is this, is that when our people are going through the most trauma, we don't want them to reach for a solution that actually puts them in a worse position than where they are. We've said free the land, clean the water, and make it public. We have to explain to people why it has to be made public. Because first and foremost, when you privatize the water, companies aren't coming in order to run that and invest in it because they have some benevolent purpose, right? They're doing it because they're trying to get a profit. And the only way that they can make that profit is to raise the price on poor people who already have affordability challenges. Why don't we want the state to run it, right? Well, when we're talking about these issues of equity, when we're talking about these issues of not getting our fair share, then why would we trust the state to run it? Furthermore, the state doesn't have the capacity themselves because they don't have the personnel necessary to run Jackson's water treatment facility, which is probably the most complicated in the country, but certainly the most complicated and complex in the state of Mississippi, right? So they're looking to get a third-party operations and maintenance group that they would contract out to work, to operate and fill in those gaps. Jackson was already in a discussion about an operations and maintenance group that we could contract, not privatize, but contract that out. So if they're in the same discussions with the same company that we're in, then their purpose is not for it to function correctly because they recognize the same company that we recognize. Their purpose is to capture the revenue. Thirdly, the last option that they have put out is the option of regionalizing, saying that you need more ratepayers on the system in order to maintain it. On the surface, it makes sense. But when you think about it in a little more critically, it entirely breaks down. So when Jackson was larger, of course, you had more ratepayers that could support the system and maintain it. As people moved out, that became a challenge. As we look at a regionalization model, what you have to understand is that when you bring in those other cities, yeah, you have more people that are paying to the system, but they depend on water in order to maintain their services, the revenue from water in order to maintain their services, just like Jackson does. And so you expand the perimeter of your responsibility. Now you have to take care of their pipes. Now you have to take care of their ditches. Now you have to take care of all of their infrastructure problems. And you're under a regionalized system where you have to believe that they're going to prioritize Jackson over these cities and communities that they continuously don't prioritize us over, that they don't give us our equitable share. And so I want to lift up right now, if I could ask the Poor People's Campaign to do anything right now, is to lift up these facts, to understand the history of this struggle, and to understand what is taking place. The lieutenant governor met more than 3 years ago with a concession firm about my water system, right? About how he could maybe enter into an agreement where they would pay money to take over the system and that they would be able to take the profit. Why is the lieutenant governor having a meeting 3 years ago about Jackson's water system? Why aren't they meeting with the leadership for us to control that and to talk about what we felt was in our best interest? I'm hearing from state legislators who are passing those same narratives. We have people who are willing to push us into a private session, a special session with the legislature just so that they could take over Jackson's water system. These are the things that have to be lifted up. These are the things that our people are crying out about.
And Roland, just before you raise your final question, Roland, I want to talk with you and Liz and our policy people about us putting a fact sheet together, just like that, that is stamped with Roland Martin Unfiltered, PPC, Repairs, Cairo, because you're exactly right, Mayor Lumumba, that is the problem. And we know in this country, you create a false narrative, and then you even get people in trauma, which is really an ugly thing, to catch people in trauma. That's like putting somebody under, waterboarding them and then asking them to answer a question. You put them under trauma. So in essence, Jackson is being waterboarded by political processes and trying to make the citizen who just want the clean water make decisions, blame it on the current mayor, not tell the truth or things I'm hearing about what already could have been done. And we must say that it doesn't matter what color you are. If you're a political person in Mississippi, you should be standing with this mayor and the citizens. You should not buy into any of this foolishness about the privatization, where on the back end what's going to happen is there are people that call for privatization. In some way or another, they are going to benefit if you follow the money, either benefit in political contributions and all kinds of things. But you said three things, Mayor, I want to lift up. Number one, and Roland pointed this out, I want to push it a little deeper, Roland. Not only is it not Mississippi's money, it's Roland Martin's money, it's North Carolina's money. See, the federal tax dollars that come to Mississippi come from all over the country.
Right.
So people all over the country should understand your money that you're paying and putting into the federal government to, in fact, help a place like this is being held up by the state.
It's not even that it's not their money, it's all of our money, right?
Right.
That's what a federal appropriation is. And then the next two things is to hear this stuff about carve-outs. Now, I had not even heard that. You're going to carve out a park. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the same state park that they locked people up in back in the 1960s. If I'm not mistaken, that's the same area over there. You're going to carve out water for a fairground, excuse me, not a park, a fairground, and carve out water for a hospital. I can get that, but then not for Jackson or just fix the system. And then thirdly, this business of wrapping some tape around, that's my analogy. And as soon as you can get the pressure up a little bit and get a little clean, you just, all the media goes away and you stop and quit the process of doing what needs to be done and fix the system. Now, y'all know I can't do it, Roland. I can't do it. But I really want to go to Nina Simone right now. But I ain't going to do it. I ain't going to do it.
I can. Her song called Mississippi Goddamn.
My goodness. You know,
I ain't got no column.
Come on.
Well, it gets deeper than that, right? So this is the latest effort to siphon off resources from Jackson. Instead of applying things to Jackson, they siphon it off. When I met with the lieutenant governor, I think now 2 years ago or better, on another legislative request for resources, it was asked of me for the rest of my team to lead. And in that, he said, listen, you know, there's a lawsuit that's going on right now where the state is trying to take over our airport and regionalize it, right? An airport that the residents of Jackson invested in, an airport which is a profitable institution. And so they wanted me to drop that lawsuit and give up our airport and say, well, maybe we'll give you somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million, right? My response to that is that I must be dumb and cheap, right? For us to give up an airport for $30 million. And that has to be the impetus by which I could even talk about things like the infrastructure needs of water, right? And so I want my people to be very clear. Don't allow somebody to step up and act like they're your savior now, right? Don't allow that wolf to come in sheep's clothing like they're trying to support us. When they tried to take our airport, there was an effort to take over our school district, right? And we were able to stop that. And now there's an effort to take over our water. None of this is coincidental.
Right.
None of it is coincidental.
And so just people understand, just like in Georgia, they have been trying, Republicans in the state have been trying to take the airport out of the hands of the city of Atlanta, knowing full well that is the greatest economic engine in the entire state. And so that's really what we're dealing with. Reverend Barber, you're absolutely right. The nation's first Black newspaper, Freedom's Journal. I got the mural in my office. It was March 16, 1827. They said, "We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us." And so the reason these points are critically important, I had conservative, commentator, radio host Eric Erickson out of Atlanta. He goes, "Well, the reason Jackson has this problem is because they haven't been collecting the bills, collecting the payments from the folks in the city." And I replied back, I said, "Well, Eric, that's a lie. I got the mayor on my show right now. Why don't you book him on your show and talk to your conservative listeners and get the facts?" Mayor, I doubt you probably heard from Eric Erickson's staff.
I have not.
That's what I'm talking about. So the reason Black-owned media is important, reason I'm fighting for more of the ad dollars, is because when they control the dominant airwaves, they get to set the narrative. And then people go, "Well, I saw so-and-so on, and they said this. That's how this thing is played." And so, yeah, those facts are critically important. And what it also does is it forces these clueless mainstream media people to actually have that sheet and say, "Now, wait a minute, Mayor, did y'all try to take this? Did this meeting happen? Did this happen?" That's what is needed because, yeah, they've created the impression that Jackson, Mississippi's leadership is incompetent. They can't collect money, don't know how to take care of water. And so they need a savior to come in to fix their problem. And I saw this privatization deal, and I've covered city government and county government and state government. And whenever I hear privatization, Reverend Barber's absolutely right. That's a private company coming in to make a significant profit on the backs of what is supposed to be what government is supposed to be providing for its citizens, which you pay for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And many times, if you check the back end of that company, somewhere you're gonna find political support, political dollars,
Donation.
and all kinds of stuff going in, donations, friends and families with contracts and all that kind of stuff. And Mayor, lastly, you know, we're gonna get this piece done. We're coming, you know, because like you said, it doesn't matter if tomorrow all the pressure was restored and the water was coming out perfect. That's not the fix. That's just the temporary piece. What has to happen is what you have called for. And I think also, Roland, you know, we've tried tonight to say, look, this whole mess started because of racism. But look, now it's poisoning black folk, white folk. Look at the diversity here. And other outlets won't do that either, Roland. They won't many times show that the collateral damage.
That's right.
And this is a mayor of a Southern American city that's trying to care for all of his people. And we know there's so many, we don't even get into the dynamics of politics and demographics and what's going on in these cities in the South and why there's so many problems. What we need to see is that this fight over Jackson's water is bigger than Jackson, but it must, it's about Jackson. It's about power. It's about resources. It's about life. It's about death. And I Mayor, when I get there, or I may call you, I want to talk to you. I don't even want to say it right now on this line about another possible legal angle, because I'm very serious about this business. And we've got people researching it within the Poor People's Campaign, some of our folk. What do you do when policy produces death and you can actually prove it? It's not just speculative. If policy murders, what do you do with that? And we're looking at the law in a lot of ways of how to get at that, because it can't just be dismissed. Yeah. Somebody gets hurt, somebody gets sick, stuff is not benign, and somebody dies. We already know, even with clean water, 700 poor people die every year, every day in America from poverty, 250,000 people a year. I want to talk to some of the other, Danielle and us, others on the ground. But listen, our time is about out tonight because of what we planned. We're going to put it back up. It's going to be Monday, September 26th. You'll get the time and all soon. Mass National Mall Monday, Mississippi, sponsored by all of the persons you heard Sister Lumumba talk about on the ground, along with repairers, Poor People's Kairos Center. I know Roland is going to be there. I know we're going to talk. We're going to run this. We're going to push it out. This is not a one event. This is not about personality pushing. This is about building a platform for the people to speak and refusing to let this issue get off the table. How dare somebody say to the mayor, you give us the airport and we'll kick you a little kickback of money over here. That's just not only, as you said, dumb and cheap. It's just outright wrong. What needs to happen is this basic fundamental human right needs to be fixed. And as I said in the campaign, we said we don't care if you're black, white, Democrat, Republican, moderate, independent. To us in the Poor People's Campaign is, look, if you're not on the side of free the land, clean the water, and make it public, then we have to challenge that and challenge you, because that's where the people are. That's what the people want. That's what this people's mayor wants. That's what the folk have wanted for years. And I appreciate you, Mayor. One other thing. You said something that, and I'm going to close here. You said, look, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. And you listed that mayor before you, your father, other mayors, and even before Black leadership, this issue, Jackson has offered a way out, a plan, and a way to clean the water and keep it public. So this mayor is magnanimous in that. He's not trying to claim to be the savior under his tenure. He's simply trying to finish what should have been finished and completed, Liz, a long time ago. Danielle, thank you so much for bringing on these powerful families. We promise you that on the 26th, we're going to give them even greater platform and access. We're going to be calling on all the media to come, because this is what's going to happen. They're going to have to see all of these folk and all their diversity standing together and refusing to be silent and refusing to back down. Why? Because they are the salt. And the Bible says, Elisha said, give me a bowl, put fresh salt in it. He put the salt in the water, and the water became clean. You all are the salt. The mayor is the salt. Roland Martin is the salt. Protest speaking out, standing up is the salt. And we're going to pour that salt in the waters of, in the dirty waters of politics until the water of Jackson becomes clean. God bless all of you. Forward together and not one step back. Love you, Roland. Take care.
Thanks so much,
y'all.
Take care.